And welcome to this video tutorial dedicated to using OGX.JS and the CLI. I'm Eric at globules-io. I will be your host. So let's get started. So here I've already created a contact list folder here in my VS Code. And so the first step is to actually install the CLI. So it's going to be npm install globules-io /ogx.cli-g. So here we're installing the CLI globally, so it's going to be available whatever, no matter what folder you're currently in. So I'm going to init the package now for my current application, my contact list application. So it's going to be npm init. And I'm just going to press return throughout the list here. It doesn't matter for now. This is good. Okay. And now we can install the framework for this project here. So it's going to be OGX update, and it's going to fetch and install the latest version of the framework here. Okay. So everything is here, and then I can do OGX init, which is gonna just prepare a bunch of other folders that I might need throughout my application. So everything is installed. I'm gonna open the app.json, and this is basically the core of the application, is where you're gonna create some stages, your routing between the views, etc. So in OGX.js, you can have multiple apps or multiple stages, and you're going to see these apps into the vapps node here in your file. And so we're going to start by creating just one app. Basically, our contact list app is only going to have one app. It doesn't matter. For now, there's going to be other video tutorials to create more complex application where you can have sub-application per applications. So for now, we're going to create a stage, OGX create stage, and I'm just going to name it my stage. So here I've created a stage, and I also need a template for my stage. So OGX create template my stage, and my template is here. It has been added to the preload node, and I'm just going to use it here as a template, my stage. And I'm going to say yes, use. This is my default stage. I'm just going to scroll down here and turn GWT to false for now. This is more of a security setting. We'll come back to this later. There's probably I'll probably make another video just for GWT and all of the scoping in the app. But for now, let's not complicate anything. Just keep it simple. So I'm going to open my template here, and I'm going to create basically a div that I'm going to use for view. And basically here my stage is going to be, this HTML page is going to be full screen, and inside of this page I'm going to have this div is going to be my view. So let's go here, CSS, stage, and basically we got a view. Going to be display, block, and width 100%. 100%. Okay. Height 100%. Okay. So meanwhile, what I did before, actually, I created a vhost. So I created a vhost here, and if I reload, now we can see here, div, I got my stage, and I got my view, which represents basically the entire stage for now. So what that means is that every time that we're going to move from one screen to the other, this node here, this HTML, this div is going to be always replaced, right? So we could have, on top, we might do that later, like a status bar that's never going to change. We're only gonna refresh or rewrite or overwrite, if you will, the view div. All right. So we're making a contact list, so it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to add a root right now, and we're going to say here home. The name of our root is going to be home. So my stage / home, that's going to be our first root, and in this we're gonna want view. We're gonna create a view first, okay? We're gonna create a view so we can control all the contact lists with it. So OGX create view. Let's call it my view. Just very generic naming for now, so you don't get too phased out by different part of the framework. OGX create template my view. All right. So now we've created a view here. You can find its CSS in views, and of course in GS view you're gonna have my view here. I'm gonna go around this a bit later. For now we're just putting things together, so we're just preparing the terrain basically. So in my view here I'm gonna have a list, and my list is gonna be of course the list of my contacts, right? So here my list, and inside my view, so it's going to be view, sorry, it's going to be my view, list, display block, with same thing basically as we did for the stage, 100%, and height, 100%. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our app.json file, and now we're going to place our view on the stage. So the stage here, has a placeholder by default. So this is, the div ID view. It's where everything is going to be basically loaded onto the stage. So view, and it's going to be views, my view. I'm going to give it an ID, which is going to be my view here. So, and I'm going to use a template also for this view, which is going to be my view. So here, my view, where I have the list inside. So my view, the div my view here doesn't exist yet. If I remove the hashtag, in front of it, the hash, it's just going to create the view without creating an extra div. But if I had the pound or the hash in front of it's going to be creating a div my view that's going to represent my view, and then inside of it is going to be the template my view here. Why do we do that? We could have done basically here, we could have done here like this, div id my view, and then have the list inside. But because every element of OGX.JS is already represented by a div, we don't need to create an extra div for now. We just add, the hash in front of my view. That means that create for me a div, and then put the template my view inside of it. And so we get a template my view is going to be list. So here, this is good. Now we're going to go node.oml. So every time we want to create, we want to keep on creating things, but we want to first create some whatever it is, like some div, some template. We want to instantiate things. We have to use the node OML. I apologize. Node OML, node if you want, and where we're gonna be able to create more component. So now we're inside my stage views my view, and inside of this we're gonna go my view list, So now we're targeting this guy here, list, and we're going to say this is a dynamic list. We're going to give it an ID. Let's call it my list. So here we don't need to add an hashtag. It's already automatically done. This is only valid for views basically. My list, and now we need to tell the list how to render each element of the list. So again, we're going to use the template. Our template is going to be a user, and we're going to create a CSS too, which is going to be user. So now I need to create this template, OGX create template user. All right. So every time I create a template here, it's being added to the preload. So it's going to preload all of your templates, and so you can use them throughout the application without having to load and waste time loading, and it's just going to be faster this way. For now, we don't have any data for our user. We're just preparing our interface. So if I go here now, I'm going to reload, and I have, all right. So right now I'm debugging on iPhone. That's where you can see that my body is of class iOS. And now I've got my stage, which is the stage that I've recreated. Inside we've got the view, the default view inside the stage. And then we've created my view here, into which we've got the list, and which has the dynamic list inside of it. So everything is ready to display a list of user. We have a template here for my user, so let's do something with it. My class equal name, and it's going to be first name and last name. So we're going to leave it for now. Okay, I'm going to do something. I'm going to create here a JSON file. So users.json. It's just for the demo, just for the tutorial. Understand that your data users, your user list is actually most probably be fetched from a server or something like that. But you can also have prefabricated data, if you want to say it like this, for development purposes, or static data that you want to use throughout your application without having to load it from an external source. So users, we're just going to create a bunch of users here. First name, I'm going to be Eric. Last name, I got fat fingers today, doesn't work. Last name, whatever. Okay, okay, let's create a bunch right now. Let me change something here. John Doe. Let's go Sarah Connor. I don't know. Paul. This is the hard part, is just creating a bunch of random names. So let's go Paul random. And I don't know. Jack Sparrow. Let's go Jack Sparrow on this. And we're gonna have to add a unique ID here. So let's go 1. Keep it something very simple. It could be anything. It could be A, B, C, D. As long as it's unique, So here I'm gonna have 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so very, very basic. It's just to display first name, last name. And so in order for this list here, for this data to be loaded into the framework, I'm just going to do OGX prepare. I could do OGX JSON actually. So if I go here, my JSON here is added to the preload. I could have done OGX prepare, which is basically So he added a bunch more stuff. When you do OGX prepare, it's going to go through the theme. So there's always a theme by default, right? So I'm going to close a bunch of stuff here. Theme, and it's going to go to the base, dark, light, and it's going to gather every SVGs or whatnot, and it's going to add it to the preload of the app. So when you start the app, everything is preloaded. You don't have these views where you have a bunch of icons that don't display right away because you have to, they're not loaded yet depending on the speed or whatnot. So this is just a nice, nice way, a good way to have everything displaying properly as you start your applications. So prepare is gonna go through the whole thing. You can use OGX.JSON just to add some JSON file. If you want to know all the comments, you just do OGX help, and then you got all of the comments here for all of the framework. So everything has been preloaded, and this is nice. And so there's actually two ways that you can pass data to your list. We can actually just do list here, and it would be list O's. So O's stands for Organic Script Engine, and then it would be JSON users. So this we don't need to do it. In the real world, we wouldn't add our list here. We would probably go to my view here, and once it's constructed, we would fetch some data from the server and then pass it to the list. But for now, we're just going to do like this, and I'm going to show you later on how to do it from the view. Okay, now we're here. We're going to take a look at what our list looks like. So this is how a list looks like. Everything has been preloaded. But basically we'd like to style a little bit our users here, each and every one. So we need to create the user class. We're going to do this here in the bin folder, user. And it's going to add something very simple like a padding 10px. And so our file is not loaded right now. In order to load it, we're just going to prepare our application again, OGX prepare, boom, and here this file has been added to the index file. So for now, we're going to have a bunch of different links here that's going to turn into basically a lot less links when the application is going to be compressed. Then we'll see that later on. So a quick note here, I'm only going to be using the standard JavaScript, such as var. I'm not going to use all the newer keywords, just to keep it simple for now. Also because the compiler, basically the framework is already compiled for ES5. So let's keep it simple, just use the standard JavaScript, and I'll explain later why we do that. And you can also, if you really want to use the newer keywords of JavaScript, you can. It's not a problem. It's that you're going to be a lot more on your own when it comes to compressing everything. You're going to have to install Bubble and everything and do your own thing. If you don't want to do your own thing, if you want to use the built-in compressor, minifier, then stick to standard JavaScript for the front end. Everything has to be down compiled for ES5 because it has to work for everything and for every device. So this is just easier to deal with right now. So everything, I'm going to reload my page, see what happens now. Okay, I've started my stuff. I can select my user. So everything so far so good. All right, so let's continue. I'm going to go back to my view here. And in order to be able to manipulate the data here, to know when we click on a user, to be able to maybe display this data in a new, in a new zone of, more information inside our app. So I'm going to go var list, and into my constructor of my view here, I'm going to do list equal app cache find, so it's cfind, and it's going to be a dynamic list, and it was my list. So quick note here, when we do cache find, every object that has been created through the app.json is loaded into a cache inside OGX.JS, and you can actually find it back by using this cache find and passing the type of object and the ID of the object. Now, this app here, in terms of architecture, this list, I'm sorry, in terms of architecture, is inside my view. It has been declared here inside my view. So we could have done something else here. We could have done, so I'm just going to comment this for now. It could have been just list this find, because inside of our view here, the first node of our view is the list, so it is accessible right inside the view as a child of the view. If you use cache find here, it's going to be just, you're going to go into the global, if you want, cache, and where every object is saved, you know, in the global cache. It really depends what you want to target. You could target just the, you know, find it in its direct nodes, or find it in the global global cache. If I go here, I would have cache find dynamic list, my list. I would find it here. So it's available globally, but I could do a search just into the subnodes, or so if you have multiple objects that it's not recommended that have different that have the same name. But I would say as a guideline, just always use cache find. Is going to be just faster to retrieve your objects. So I got my list here. And okay, so I got enable, disable, and UX. So what does that mean? So enable, disable, and UX, they do the same thing. And what I mean by that is just like enable is going to be the same as UX true, and disable is going to be the same as UX false. So this enable, disable, and UX, they're automatically called when the view or the object becomes available on the screen. And let me explain, because this is a lot more complex than what it looks like. If you have a complex application, so right now our application is pretty simple. I'm going to open this. We only have one view, we only have one stage, and then one view inside, and then one list inside a view inside the stage. So right now everything is displayed on the stage, so everything has been turned on. Now if we would have maybe a window, and we'll see that later, a window like that would slide in. As long as the window is not sliding, everything would be disabled. As long as the view is not displayed on the stage, everything is disabled, right? So here this is going to be, so we could be putting in enable or disable, but I like to use the UX better. It's up to you if you want to use true, false, or enable, disable. And so we're going to be list L, so the element where the list is instantiated, sorry, on OGX dynamic list select, and then we're going to have function, which is going to be event here, and then here you're going to be having our user. I like to use double underscore for stuff that is passed from function. It's up to you to write it the way you like. And here I'm going to turn it off, meaning that if later on my application gets more complex and my view gets moved around, As soon as the view is not available anymore, it's not displayed on the stage anymore, every listener that you instantiate into the UX or enable disable are going to be basically disabled, right? So every time something is inside disabled or UX false here, means that everything is turned off. And the way, so it's turned off, and it's turned off for every subnodes of this view, right? So um, right now, if I disable this view, my list is inside this view. So the list is going to be disabled. And inside the list, if I would have had, right now we're just using a template to display our user, but you could use very like more complex object inside the list. You can use multiple views inside the list, each view per user, if you want to work this way. So everything is going to be disabled down the tree, right? So if I disable my stage because I go to another stage, then the stage is going to be disabled, which in turn is going to disable the view, which is going to disable the list, which is going to disable everything of the list, etc., etc. That way you can have huge applications and not have a lot of memory that is being sucked on by every listener turn on at the same time in your application. If you don't see stuff on your screen, then there's no reason for the stuff to be anything to be running unless you decide that you want it always running. In this case, you would say always on true. But we're gonna see that later. For now, we're gonna keep it simple. And so, okay, if I'm just going to trace it for now, console log user, just to show you what it does. I'm just going to reload my page now. And every time I click, boom, here you see I have everything set. So we're missing something here because we're seeing double ID. We need a key. I thought I did that earlier, but making these videos is very time consuming, and sometimes I have to come back because I did something wrong, etc. So, okay, let's reload. And now I should have something proper. Okay, here it is. So every time I click, I see I have my complete object here. Okay, so what would be nice to do now is we should actually be creating here a window that slides in, so let's do this way. Okay, so we're gonna create a window now in order to display the information of our user, and the way we're gonna do it basically is we're gonna check if the window already exists, and we're gonna destroy it if it exists, and then we're always gonna recreate it. So to do that, we're gonna do if app window exists, user window, which is going to be the name of the window we create, app remove window, user window. And now we're going to create the window win equal app create window, and we're going to give it an ID, which is user window. We're going to give it a title, so the title is going to be user first name and user last name. I'm going to give it a width of 100% and height of 100%. Anim, so anim is which way does it come from? Does it come from which side does it come from? Does it come from the right side, sliding in the view, or from the left side from the sliding in the view, or from the top or from the bottom? We're going to use right, and we want to show it right away. So you can create windows and not actually show them. If you want to prepare some windows, so we're going to refresh here, see what it looks like. And now when I click, oh, it's not create a window, it's add window. I made a mistake. Here, let's reload again. Okay, here we are. So now we got our window here, Sarah Connor. If I click on this one, it's going to be John Doe, Jack Sparrow. And in order to do a real contact list, then, well, we should have some information in that window. So in order to add some information in that window, we're going to create, again, the node OML. So we're going to create a subnode, right? So the window is going to be created, everything is going to be created in the window. And so inside the window, we want to have actually a view where we're going to have the information for that user that we can manipulate, right? So here I'm using this type of bracket instead of the curly bracket. So I'm creating like an array. And when we did here, I'm going to go back here, we use straight up the curly brackets. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that because a window extends the placeholder class, and let me explain. The window is going to create one big element, one big empty element, which is the middle here. So if I'm going to create, I'm going to inspect this. This is the body of our window. But it would be quite, tedious to actually have to retype every selector to target the body of the window. So because the window extends the placeholder class, then we used to have, we need to use the array, declare it as an array instead of straight up as an object. So here, array, and then my objects in it. The reason why is because there are some other objects in OGX.JS that creates more than one placeholder. And again, to not remember how every placeholder is named, we use the array, and then in our object we type default, which is for the default placeholder, and we're gonna have the views, which is gonna be my user. Let's go to my user, view my user, and let's give it an ID, which is gonna be user underscore plus user ID. So we need to give an ID to everything. So we could have used just user view because we're destroying it every time. But I like to keep things tidy and have every view using the same ID as the object we manipulate for some reason. It's up to you to name it the way you want. Before we go any further, we need to create that view. So OGX create view my user, or it could be view user, whatever. So we're going to view my user here, and we're going to create a template too. Create template my user, which is going to be different than the user template, right? The user template is just a template for every element of the list, and my user here is going to be to actually display some data here. So we're most probably going to have a form when we're going to have some information that we want to modify. So input type equal text, placeholder, first name. And this is going to be required. I can have as well pattern here. We'll see. We'll fill that out later on. And we're going to have a name, which of course is going to be first name as well. First name. Okay. First name. Let's go last name. And maybe email here. Name, email. Or last name here. So the email. And maybe we can have a phone number. So input type, tell, name, phone I don't know, 755, 555, 555. And placeholder here, email domain.com. So we've got a form here, my user, and so we're going to use it here. Template, my user, and data is going to be user. So what happens here when we add data to a view? Now we can go back to my user here, and the value here, the value at this point is going to be first name. So I'm passing the entire object to this template, and the engine is gonna replace all of the values here inside the template. Right, so first name, last name, email, and phone. Whoa, I really have fat finger today. Terrible. Okay, we're gonna use this data here. We have to change a little bit these things here. So email. So let's say for now we don't have any email and we don't have a phone, and that's something that we need to fill up for every single one of our users. So I'm just leaving empty. So if I leave it empty right now, it means that we're only loading from the database this part, you know, and this part is still empty. Has to be, so it's going to be displayed right because it exists, but we need to actually do something with it, like gather the information and fill up the information, right? So let's go back to this, view my user, template my user. I got my data, which is user. This should be just enough. Let's see if I didn't miss anything. I'm gonna reload. Sarah Connor, and now we've got everything here in our window. So stuff that would be editable. Right now it's in red because we added the required pattern. Pattern is not defined, so it is detected as something that is missing, right? Incomplete information. We're going to want to use to style a little bit this view here. Sorry, my user view. And it's going to be, we're going to add in, pass it a class first. So I'm going to go back to my view here. And let's go with CSS. Yeah, let's go my user. I like to use you know, lowercase for CSS and camel to type, you know, for the template. It's up to you. Basically, you name your stuff how you want it. So now I'm gonna create my users. So that's the, oh, by the way, we don't need to create this because we're already working with the view my user, so it's already created here. All right. And it's going to be my user. So if we go back here to actually check it out, we've got our body. Oh no, we haven't added any CSS. So let's add a CSS first. My view, template, CSS, my user for the view. And here, my user. Let's do padding 20px. And let's see how it looks now. Yeah, so we added a padding into this. So now we've got my user here has been added as a CSS for this representation here, where we have a form inside and every field inside of it. So in terms of Windows, so here's the thing. by default, OGX, the selection of the list is on select. We did it on select. Now we got a problem because if we've already selected, it's not going to show it again. So we need to change that. We need to change that to, we're going to go to my view here. And no, we're going to keep select, but we're going to declare here as mode hit. And now if we reload, we get a view, but if I press it again, it's still coming back. So there's different mode to the list depending on if you select, if you want to. So by the way, this window, I can drag it to close it, or I can just hit the icon. And we could have had basically show these windows from the other side of the screen if you wanted. Maybe you don't like this, you want to go left, or just change it for left. And now we're reloading, and I click, and now my window is coming from the left. Okay, I like right better. All right. And so, okay, let's do something else here. You've got your views, my user, and yeah, we need to validate some of this data. All right, so we're gonna use form here to bind some of our data. So we're gonna go OGX form bind, and then we're gonna give the elements of the form. So here is gonna be my user form, and then we can add each and every field. So we got first name first, then we got last name. We'll fill that up later on. First name, last name, email, and we said phone fields, and we're gonna have a change callback. We're gonna on form change. So let's create the callback here. Function on form change. I'm going to pass an object. Okay. So you can have change callback and submit callback when we're talking about a form. You can bind also fields by field if you want to use OGX form bind field. So this is bind form actually. All right. And we're gonna have to destroy that bind. So inside of our view, when our view gets destroyed, when the window gets destroyed, it's going to destroy your view, and inside the view we need to unbind form, and this is going to be just like that. All right. And so from this point on, so there's a lot here. There's a lot we can do in terms of data validation. We can have some masking, for instance. So we want to be like 555, 555, 555. All right. We want some validation. Validate true. And you can also add a wait time. So let's say 2. So what happens here is when any of the field changes, is going to wait for at least 2 seconds after the last change before calling the on form change callback. You can set it to 0 if you want. So this is very useful if you're editing, let's say, bigger forms, and you don't want to send all of the data every time the user stops typing or stop modifying, you know, because otherwise it creates a lot of traffic to your server. So you can add, you know, 2 seconds or maybe a second and a half. So that means that when the user stops typing for a second and a half, then the form on form change is gonna be triggered. For now, okay, this is good. Another thing I like to do here, maybe we can put in an ID here, because this is good practice to, you know, add a single ID, because maybe you don't want to destroy your window. Maybe you want to have multiple windows, and you want to target window by window. So in this case, you can call it like I don't know, user data underscore, and then we can add idea. All right. So let's call it this way, and if I go back to my user here, and then this would actually become user data and config data idea. So if I do that, I'm going to reload. I'm going to inspect my form now. So my form ID is user data 3 underscore 3. So what happened here is that we created a hard ID using user data underscore and then passing the ID for each user. And so when we're in that form, when we're passing the data to that view here, our user is going to be, we could have done var user equal config data. This in the constructor, the data and root data is optional data, and that has to do with the routing. You can pass data to the routing. So you get your data, and you get another way of passing additional data into the constructor. So we could actually do this instead. User ID. And so that's going to change this part too. So here I made a mistake. It's actually straight up the selector here. There's no form after it because it's the ID equal to form. Okay. Let's verify my user. User didn't have, yeah, okay. So now we're targeted the proper form with it, and we should be able to trace what's going on here. So we go on Sarah and domain.com 555 555 555, and now it's waiting. So boom. So it has been passing an object which is form user data 3. Is it valid? True. So it was probably valid. Okay. And then you've got your email, the first name, last name, and the phone number. So everything here is in object basically. So all of the data here is going to be object, which is going to be the final data, and the first object is going to hold basically is it valid, etc., etc., all the other stuff, you know, that we're passing here. So the name of the form, is it valid, and then the complete object. And so, okay, let's do that. If object valid, then in this case, now we want to update. The data, right? So let's go var list, and here we're gonna get our list again. Cache find, dynamic list, my list. And now if it's valid, we're gonna do list, find update, ID, which is going to be user ID, and we're going to pass it object. Then we're going to do false 1. So what happens here is like within this list we're going to say you find this this user, based on its ID, so ID user ID, and then you're going to replace everything that's in object. False, it means that it's not strict. True means strict. So if you have additional data that is not already in the list, so if you have a property like I don't know, hair color, okay, and it's not inside the users.json here, and if you set it to strict true, that it's not going to be added to the object. If you pass it false, means everything that is inside object is going to be replaced. And 1, just because we want to limit the search of this object to 1. So we're going to remove this for now. And we just, here we're going to trace our user here. Console log user, just to see if the change actually works. I'm going to reload this. Sarah Connor, Sarah domain.com 555. So now everything has been updated in the list. So if we go back to John Doe here, we don't have this data for John Doe, but if we go back to Sarah Connor, everything is already here because it's been updated inside the list. Okay, we're here in the list, we're only displaying the first name and the last name, but our object that is being held inside the list already contains the data that we replaced. So here I've got a 404 is just the logo. You can have a logo in your window. By default is looking for image.logo. We can actually remove that. If we go to window, you can remove this and say we have no icons by default. Let's do this. And if I reload now, we shouldn't have the 404 again. There we go. So now, of course, I reloaded, I didn't save, so we have to redo this. But what happens here? So right now we're saving locally here. We're not even saving locally. We're just pushing to the list. We're just pushing into the list right now. What would happen is that here, if it's valid, you update it here on the list, and then here at the same time you would do your remote call, basically your post to your backend when you send all of the data, right? So this is to keep in mind that right now the application is not connected to any backend. So right now we're just simulating that, okay, we've been loading this data here locally, but at the end it will come from the backend, and then when the form changes from one user, we're gonna use a post call to update the data to inside our database. So this is gonna call your API basically. So yeah, we've made some great progress. We've created a contact list app where you can actually update all of the data, put it in a window, and if I Sarah domain.com 504 555 444 whatever, and now if you're coming back to Sarah, oh no, we did Paul, sorry, Paul, then I should change it to Paul. Alright, so that should be good. Eric has nothing, and Paul has all of the data here. Okay, the next steps we want to do for our mini contact list application, it would be to actually be able to add and delete some users. So yeah, we're going to do this next. Alright, so now in order to add a new user, we're going to have to change just a little bit. Here, this template, we've got list, so let's have another div, class add, and it's just going to be basically a button. So I'm going to go back to my view here, and let's do this one position, relative, and let's do my view, add, position, absolute. Okay, this is going to be just super random, 50, we'll see how it looks, 50, or radius, 25, background color, no, doesn't matter right now, I'm just creating something real quick, something like this. Bottom, I don't know, maybe 30, and right, 30. I have no idea what it's gonna look like. Yeah, plus maybe something like this. Let's see how it looks like. Yeah, it's not too bad. My color didn't work, I think. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like this. Usually you would add an icon or whatever, so we're not gonna worry about that too much for the tutorial. It's actually not a big deal. I'm not gonna spend some time on styling. The video is already long enough. So what we're gonna do now is let me close to the right here. Boom. Okay. So from this view, yeah. So basically, we're gonna go and add this L on this touchdown. So here what we're doing is that we're creating a listener on the element of the view, and we're using this touchdown. So what happens is that OGX.JS already, if you always use this touchdown, it's always going to make the link between am I in a web page, or am I in a mobile application. And so instead of doing two selectors for touchdown and mouse down, just use this touchdown, and it's gonna do the proper link on its own. And this add function, all right, and actually let's do here create user. Okay, so we're gonna do our off here, on off, create user, and now we're gonna create function create user. And basically what we want to do here, we want to have so it's either we're going to create a new user straight up to the list, and then we have to select it and then change everything. Yeah, we could just do like that, because otherwise we could use a pop-up to when we press to display a pop-up, and then are you sure you want to create, or maybe straight up have the opportunity to create the first name or the last name. But we're just gonna create for now just a random user. So create user, the ID is going to be a problem here, right? Because we're not coming from a database here. So this is a bit of the wrong way of doing it, because right now, just for the sake of this demonstration, we're using the users.json. But this data in the real world would not be here. This data would come from the database. And here when we would create a user, basically we would do a remote call to the database, and it would return you, you know, an object, an empty object with an ID straight from your database. So we're just going to simulate it for now. It's going to be a bit wonky, but I think you will get the point. So basically, we just at this point we just want to add a new entry in our database and be able to edit it, right? So in our list, I mean. So we're gonna create new user. Let's go USR ID. So I'm just gonna add, I don't know, 99, whatever, just because it's just gonna work for that one time, right? But understand that this is gonna come from the backend, right? And first name, let's go new, and last name, let's go user. And we don't have any email for now, and we don't have any phone. I mean, everything is empty. And so we're going to do list, insert, USR. All right, so now it's going to reload this. And if I click here, boom, we get our new user, and then we can straight up edit it. And then it's the same workflow basically. Okay, let's do something else now. We want, maybe once we select, we want to be able to delete the user, right? So let's do this. And it would be nice actually to use, actually we're going to use the window here. So we're going to do icons. And we're going to create an icon here. So it's going to be an image, and maybe we could get one from the theme actually. So it would be themes, dark. So it would depend on your theme actually here. Dark, image. I think I have a trash can maybe here. I have a remove. Okay. Dark image / remove.svg. Okay, let's see if that worked. I'm gonna reload. Undefined. No, that wasn't good. Icon. Okay. I gotta do everything by memory, so. Theme dark image remove.svg is not found. Why not? Oh, okay, I forgot this. Theme io-globules-OGX, which is the default theme basically. So this value here, dark light, you can fetch it, you know, depending on. I explain later. You can fetch which mode the end user is currently using for your application. I'm trying not to do every feature of the framework in one video because that would be just so here we got this. Okay, we got our icon, and so with our icon here we can actually have a callback. So we're going to say callback. The callback is going to be delete user, and then we're going to create a function delete user. All right. And here, because basically we want to get the selected user, even if it's not a hit, you know, render user. So let's do that. Our selected user right now is going to be null. Null. Selected user. And so when we're going to render user, let's go selected user equal user idea, right? And so when we're going to do delete user this time, we're going to do selected user. So we're going to straight up, oh, maybe we should, this is what we're going to do here. We're going to have, we're going to confirm. So we're going to do app add overlay. Right, so this is going to create an overlay over everything. So overlays, they can be created at any level. You can do app add overlay, or I could do this view add overlay, or so every object or most of the object can have their own overlay. So let's do app overlay, and let's add a pop-up now. So add pop-up, and we're going to do ID my pop-up, doesn't matter, title, remove user, question mark, right, and then we're gonna have width maybe, I don't know, 300, and height maybe 200, and then we want some HTML here, and let's do span class. So I'm just adding a class message, but we're not going to style it for now. It doesn't matter. Are you sure you want to delete this user? And then we're going to have some buttons. Label yes, into which we're going to have a callback on delete user. And then we're going to have another one, which is going to be label cancel callback on cancel delete. Alright, so we're going to create these two functions here on delete user. So on delete user, what we want to do now is remove the overlay, remove the pop-up, and remove this user from the list, right? So we're going to do list find delete idea selected user underscore idea. Alright, and then we can do app remove overlay and app remove pop-up my pop-up. Okay, and for the other callback function on cancel delete, so basically we just want to do this. We just want to remove everything. So actually we're not going to repeat, we're going to do this instead. It's going to be a bit nicer. Okay, so let's see what we got now. Okay, so now I made a mistake because selected user is already the ID. I knew, like this. So find delete, the key, the value of the key, and 1, just to say just stop at 1. So we're gonna reload this. So Sarah Connor, delete, are you sure you want? Yes. Alright, that's it. The window is closed and our user is gone. And we still can create a new user. And let's go to Sarah Connor again, just to say Sarah Connor, Sarah at domain.com, 444-555-4444, whatever. So boom, this has been updated. Sarah Connor is here. And Paul, are you sure you want to delete Paul? Cancel. Are you sure? Yes. And that's it. Alright, so I'm gonna stop the video right here because it's been a lot, actually way longer than I expected to be for a first video. We're gonna make more videos that are gonna be more focused into independent objects and all of the features of the framework. But I think for now it's good to get people started. All the links are gonna be in the description to download, install, check the code of the CLI, the framework, etc., the documentation. If you like this stuff, please follow, like, you know the drill. So you keep yourself updated on new content and new tutorials. So you can use the best framework to get from zero to a product. And thank you for watching.